Inspiring 12-year-old girl reveals she's her mother's lawyer. Discover the amazing transformation. As the sun set over Maplewood, the vibrant red and white sign of Linda's Diner flashed weakly in the evening glow, a haunting reminder of what was at stake. Emily Thompson, an ordinary-looking 12-year-old with wild curls and bright eyes, felt the weight of the world settle on her narrow shoulders. She wasn't just a girl, she was her mother's last hope. The greedy landlord had made it clear, the diner was to be closed for renovations that would never come, leaving her mother without a job and their home to Emily. That was an unbearable thought. In the confines of her modest room, Emily vowed silently to help her mother. Legal textbooks, thick with dusty pages, piled up on her desk as she flipped through them with relentless determination, each page offering a glimpse into the world she wanted to conquer. But as she chased complex terms and rules, self-doubt shadowed her every effort. Could a child really take on such heavy issues? Did anyone, even her closest friends, see her potential as anything more than just a child lawyer? It gnawed at her. Every skeptical glance from classmates affirmed her fears. Emily's heart raced as sunlight poured through the window, illuminating the notes she'd scrawled about property law, citing cases and laws. Yet as she tacked the poster on her wall, declaring "I can make a difference," her breath caught in her throat. Her mother believed in her homework and grades, but here Emily was, prioritizing a fight for justice over school. Tension pulled at her gut. Was she betraying her mother with this secret ambition? During lunch, the whispers brushed past her like a cold wind. "Child lawyer, huh?" Followed by laughter that stung. Each chuckle was a tiny dagger, and Emily felt her resolve quivering like a fragile leaf in a storm. She glanced toward Mr. Jenkins, the retired attorney who had taken an interest in her plight. "You carry your mother's heart," he'd said. Emily wanted his wisdom to shield her from doubt, but now it seemed useless against the talk around her. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the town meeting approached, the tension inside her grew thicker, coiling tighter like a spring ready to snap. Would her presentation be a mere child's whimsy, or could she make an undeniable impact? The faces of townsfolk blurred in her mind. Would they ignore her, as her classmates did? Emily's thoughts spiraled until she was paralyzed with fear. The stakes were no longer about the diner, they were about her mother's dreams and dignity. With the day of reckoning looming, a spark of clarity ignited her spirit. An old connection uncovered, an unanticipated link to the landlord's past crept into her mind. This was not simply a child fighting losses, it was a legacy hers and her mother's entwined. Breath steady, she readied herself, but the whisper of doubt still lingered like a phantom in the air. Would the lens of youth overshadow her conviction? As she grasped the notes for her presentation, she confronted her own reflection in the mirror, eyes steady yet quaking. The courtroom would witness her fight, she just needed to find a way to embody the courage she felt so desperately. The anxiety buzzed within her, electrified with the possibilities ahead. But would she prevail or crumble in the face of their incredulity? As the gavel hung just above the wooden bench, the clash between childhood dreams and adult realities awaited her. What truth would unravel in the solemn hush as she stepped into her role? As the evening deepened, Emily's heart beat faster with an urgency that echoed in her ears. The town hall buzzed with activity, filled with townspeople sorting through agendas and snippets of conversation. She felt like a solitary island amidst their currents, still grappling with the monumental task ahead. Her mother's face loomed in her mind, a mixture of hope and anxiety cast across her features. This moment wasn't just about the diner, it was about preserving the sanctuary they had built together. Emily stared into her notes, the ink blurring in her vision as doubt threatened to seep in. What would she say? How could she convince a room full of adults who wielded authority while she was simply a girl holding a dream? Just then, Mr. Jenkins appeared, the calming presence of the retired attorney reassuring amidst the storm of her doubts. He had always been a quiet anchor for her, guiding her with his wisdom. Now, she desperately needed that anchor more than ever. "Emily," he said softly, his voice cutting through the chatter. "Remember, it's your passion that will resonate most. Speak from the heart." His eyes gleamed with faith. Did he really believe she could sway them? "Don't let their laughter drown out your conviction." She nodded, inhaling deeply, the air heavy with the scent of polished wood and anxiety. The tension curled like smoke around her, yet with each breath she drew in, something inside her began to shift. She wasn't just representing her mother, she was standing up for something larger than herself. The thought ignited a flicker of defiance, her grip on the paper tightening until her knuckles white. When her name was called, Emily walked toward the podium, each step heavy with significance. The townsfolk settled, their gazes a mixture of curiosity and skepticism, much like her classmates earlier in the day. She caught sight of the landlord, a towering figure at the back, his demeanor smug. The shadow of his ambition loomed large, and she felt an electrifying surge of determination wash over her. "Hello, everyone," Emily began, her voice tremulous yet firm. "My name is Emily Thompson. I am here to speak on behalf of my mother," and I believe fear flickered like a candle against the wind, but she pressed on. "I believe that Linda S. Diner is not just a building or a business. It's a cornerstone of our community." The words flowed more easily now, passion overriding her fear. "My mom has worked tirelessly to make it a home not only for our family but for this town." Their faces shifted slightly, some looked intrigued while others remained unconvinced. The battle to keep their attention was fiercer than she anticipated. "If the diner closes, it would mean suddenly," the landlord interrupted her, voice dripping with condescension. "Isn't it a bit ambitious for a child to lecture us about business?" Heat pooled in Emily's cheeks, but she countered, "It's not about ambition, it's about integrity." The words slipped out unguarded, a truth she felt deep within more than ever. "My mom has poured her heart into this place. Think of the memories, the friendships. What plans exist to truly renovate it? Will it be left to gather dust, or are we going to let the dream decay?" The room fell silent, her assertion cutting through the tense air. For a brief moment, she saw the faintest flickers of consideration in the eyes around her. But the echo of doubt still lingered. A challenge awaited. Could one child's voice carry the weight of the community's future against such a powerful opponent? As she finished her speech, Emily could feel the tremors of uncertainty creeping in again. Had she done enough? The impatient murmurs began, just as they had grown quiet. Were they reflecting on her words or dismissing them entirely? She watched their expressions, a swirl of emotions colliding and crackling like fireworks, but in the chaos, one piercing thought emerged: would she dare to speak again when the moment called for it? With the gavel poised to summon the next speaker, she raised her chin, sustaining the momentum within her. The conflict was just beginning, and she felt it pulse insistently beneath the surface. Would her determination be enough to face the landlord again? Would she find within herself new ways to defy expectations and challenge authority? The answer lay just beyond the threshold of her boiling ambitions, urging her forward into the unknown. As the gavel echoed throughout the town hall, Emily felt a rush of adrenaline drown out the low murmur of dissent. The momentary silence offered her the semblance of control, but her heart quickened again with realization. She had dared to confront authority, and it could very well fracture under the weight of her conviction. Her mind raced, moving past the uncertain reactions of those gathered and into the realm of possibilities. "Focus," she whispered to herself, glancing down at her notes again. Yet, they seemed distant now, a mere collection of words that paled in comparison to the truth she felt swelling inside. She was not just the voice of her mother, she was the embodiment of Linda S. Diner and its legacy. Determined to capitalize on the attention she had momentarily garnered, Emily opened her mouth to speak again, but the challenge remained. How could she command respect from people who were, at least on the surface, ready to dismiss her? "Excuse me, Miss Thompson," a voice boomed from the back, cutting in before she could gather her thoughts. It was Mr. Grayson, the landlord, his expression a caricature of smugness, resplendent in his authority. "Have you even considered the financial aspects of keeping that diner running? Youthful sentiment doesn't pay the bills." His dismissal stoked the flame of indignation within her, but she forced herself to remain composed. "Actually, Mr. Grayson," she began, her tone steadier than before, "I have spoken with people in this community about what makes the diner successful." She took another breath, summoning memories of laughter and conversation from the diner, a tapestry of life woven through the years. "Yes, it might not balance the books easily right now. But those numbers don't reflect the heart of this place. My mom has always served more than just food, she's created connections." Each sentence felt like a carefully placed brick, building something formidable against his attack. Emily felt a protective rush for her mother and the diner ripple through her, and it served as fuel for the fire burning within. The townspeople had to hear, really hear, what she was saying. This was about more than a business, it was about identity. Every meal shared, every smile exchanged, adds value that no accountant's ledger can quantify. We're not simply talking about a piece of property, we're talking about our heritage, our memories woven into the very fabric of who we are. A girdle of silence enveloped the room, tension poised in the air as her gaze flickered momentarily to Mr. Grayson. For the first time, she saw a flicker of annoyance cross his face, a crack in the armored facade of authority. Perhaps he was realizing she was not just a child, but someone who understood the pulse of their community, their roots, but the battle was far from over. Emily understood that rallying a room of skeptics could quickly revert to dismissal with the wrong step. Her confidence wavered, teetering on the brink of uncertainty. Each breath she took echoed the dual cherishment and fear of her mission. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. "Emily," the mayor called out, drumming his fingers on the lectern. "We need to find a practical solution," his voice shifting toward neutrality, framing their response within ambiguity. "Practical," she echoed, the word igniting a new spark. Was there a practical way that could honor her mother's vision? What if we created a community initiative for locals to invest in the diner? We could host events or workshops, even cook-offs. This could bolster our local economy and keep the diner alive in the hearts of those who love it. Each idea flowed as if drawn forth by an unseen force. She felt the tentative beginnings of a strategy not just to defend but to innovate. Creativity mingled with her resolve, thrusting her forward. But could she back it up? Would those in the hall support such a venture born from her young mind? With every breath, the stakes escalated further. Emily stood at the threshold of possibility and of risk. What would happen if her attempts to bring fresh ideas to life only met skepticism in the business realm? Would her voice carry enough weight to inspire change? The challenge swelled, vibrating within her core like an electric current, urging her to step further into the fray. Would she forge ahead with her plan for community involvement, or would the weight of expectation stifle her drive? The air hung thick with potential, and as her eyes swept the room, the question loomed: might she gather the courage needed to face what came next, or would she falter just as victory began to whisper in her ear? Emily's pulse quickened as she felt the scrutiny of the room press heavily against her. It was no longer just a matter of self-expression, she was risking everything that her mother had built. The stairs she had climbed to voice her opinions now felt narrow, the weight of expectation threatening to pull her down. She clenched her fists at her sides, redirecting the energy surging within her. "Mr. Mayor," she said, forcing herself to keep eye contact. "If we can host weekly events, showcasing local talent or bringing in guest chefs to share their skills, not only can we draw in more customers, but we can also strengthen our community ties. The diner can be the heart of our town, a place where we revive our connections." With every word, she realized she was rallying for more than just the diner. She was advocating for traditions, support, and resilience, the very essence of her upbringing, now thrust into the light. The thought invigorated her. However, intimidation loomed when she observed the deliberation on the mayor's face. It was a mixture of interest and skepticism. Would he see this as an opportunity? "Emily, that sounds ambitious, but how do you plan to execute such an idea? The mayor's voice cut through her reverie, urging her to provide substance. She inhaled sharply, acutely aware of the scrutiny swirling around her like a tempest. Could she actually lead something like this? Did she possess the skills necessary to manage and execute events? The seed of doubt edged its way into her mind, pulling at her confidence. But then she thought of her mother, meticulously handling the diner's daily chaos with grace, her laughter echoing amidst the clinking of dishes and warm conversations. The years Emily spent watching her organize everything from holiday dinners to family gatherings unfurled in her memory. She could channel that knowledge. By reaching out to local chefs, artists, and musicians, perhaps we could create a schedule of events, Emily proposed, her voice gradually peaking with enthusiasm. I could coordinate with schools to involve students, perhaps even turn it into a project for a local business class. We could even bring in a few volunteers to help manage the activities, making it an opportunity for learning and engagement. Each idea blossomed under the light of her determination, and the flicker in the mayor's eyes grew brighter. Yet, with every eureka moment, uncertainty nagged at her mind. Was her vision too grand? Did she have what it takes to execute it? Before she could spiral into self-doubt, the applause began to erupt in the room, initially timid but swiftly escalating into a collective affirmation. It resonated inside Emily like thunder, a sweeping wave of validation that drowned out the queries in her head. A glimmer of hope burst anew. But somewhere in the shadows, Mr. Grayson shifted, annoyance etched into his features. We don't have the budget for such endeavors. Offering events will cost more than it brings in, he interjected with an air of authority. And without financial backing, your idealism is futile. The air stilled, it was a sharp needle in the blossoming balloon of her ideas. For a heartbeat, her resolve faltered, the rough edges of reality cutting in. Did Mr. Grayson speak truth? Was her dream destined to fail before it even began? Suddenly, a realization hit her. What if financial constraints could be an impetus for innovation rather than a roadblock? Maybe we can seek sponsorships or funding from local businesses, Emily suggested, her voice steady once more. If we develop a monthly loyalty program for diners who attend, they could receive discounts. The initial revenue could help offset costs for the events, and in turn, encourage more community involvement. The energy in the room shifted again, the townspeople's whispers hinting at a newfound interest. She glanced over at the mayor, and this time, his expression was pensively approving. But Mr. Grayson rose once more, glaring down the head of the table. And suppose it fails? These are just dreams struck with naive optimism. You've built nothing yet, Emily. What then? What's your real plan when it all falls through? The question stung, lancing through her confidence like ice water. What remained of her resoluteness teetered on the brink. She had no concrete guarantees, no formal execution plan. Perhaps it really was too ambitious. Yet, within the grip of those doubts came an unfamiliar sense of clarity. Could she be on the cusp of a journey she never anticipated? The core of her identity fought against surrender, and deep down, she understood, confronting failure was part of pursuing her dream. Mr. Grayson, Emily began again, her voice low but unwavering, sometimes, you have to take risks in order to uncover what's waiting for you on the other side. I'm willing to commit to this and explore every avenue to make it work. The silence that followed was palpable, an electric anticipation pulsing through everyone in the room. She had crossed a threshold, the ground beneath her was changing, little did she realize the truth lurking around the corner. This was merely the first step down a daunting path laden with lessons and growth. What awaited her would force her to confront not just the battle against authority, but the conflict within herself. Emily faced the audience, her heart pounding fiercely, exhilaration flooding her veins, readying herself for whatever might come next. Would she discover a reservoir of strength she never knew existed, or would she confront something deeper, fear, her own self-doubt, before she could rise? The room hung in a fragile silence, the applause still echoing in the back of Emily's mind, competing with Mr. Grayson's pointed reminders of the risks ahead. The anticipatory glances from the townsfolk felt both encouraging and daunting. This was no longer just an idea, it was a commitment, a declaration of her resolve. But resolve, she knew, needed a plan. As she sat down, Emily's heart raced, not from fear but from the exhilarating notion of what this could mean. In that moment, she recognized that her aspirations stretched beyond the walls of the diner, they beckoned her into uncharted territories. What if this was her chance to craft a legacy of her own? She could not only honor her mother's memory but forge her individuality. Days turned into weeks following the meeting, and Emily found herself consumed by sketches and drafts of potential events. With every plan she penned, she became more aware of the nuances of coordination. Timelines, budgets, and promotional strategies danced around her like a whirlwind. The intimidation of the task ahead was overwhelming, but unlike before, she clung fiercely to the excitement that surged with each new idea. One afternoon, she stood in the diner, surrounded by the familiar scent of eggs and coffee, and felt an aura of determination envelop her. She grabbed her notebook, flipping through her thoughts until her eyes landed on the proposal for a diner showcase, a night dedicated to inviting local talent to perform, demonstrate, and inspire. Engaging local chefs for a special cooking night felt invigorating, but alongside excitement flared haunting thoughts. What if no one showed? What if the idea flopped? Flashes of self-doubt rushed in, but she stopped them mid-thought. Curating talent meant embracing vulnerability. She repressed the questions that morphed into fears. This was her moment to cultivate her strength. That evening, under the dim warm glow of the diner's lights, she sat across from her best friend, Maya. "I can plan the showcase, but I'll need help to organize everything. We can make it a team effort." Maya leaned forward, excitement sparkling in her eyes. "Absolutely. You've got the vision, and I can handle the social media push. We can create posters, reach out to local performers." The spark of their conversation ignited something within Emily, a tangible partnership. Friends believed in her dream, and their support surprised her. With each passing week, Emily's circle of accountability grew. Small conversations turned into plans, and her once vague ideas began transforming into concrete steps. She approached local businesses for sponsorships and crafted thoughtful letters that framed her vision persuasively. The apprehension of facing possible rejection was fierce, but behind her stood a community willing to engage. Months melted into the rhythm of preparation, and finally, the showcase night arrived. Emily stood at the entrance of the diner, her stomach churning with anxiety as she watched her plans materialize. A flurry of guests streamed through the door, some familiar faces, others entirely new. The anxious thrum of anticipation spurred her heart forward. As the evening unfolded, laughter wrapped around her like a blanket. Bands played, artists unveiled their creations, and the atmosphere thrummed with energy. Emily moved through the crowd, absorbing the atmosphere. Their enjoyment fueled her spirit, her initial fears dissipating like morning fog. In the midst of a conversation with a local chef, his compliment ignited a flicker of realization. Her effort had begun to bear fruit, but it wasn't merely about the success of the evening, it was about what she had become. Each interaction built on her confidence as she navigated the night. She was a connector, a supporter, and for the first time, she felt worthy of leadership. Emerging from the initial doubts, Emily understood that her notion of failure wasn't an endpoint, it was merely part of the journey, an inevitable step leading to discovery. Yet, as she caught sight of Mr. Grayson absent in the crowd, a whisper of unresolved tension taunted her mind. Did skeptics such as him still loom in the shadows? Her heart raced as she turned, the thrill of triumph mingling with uncertainty. This was just the beginning, a new chapter unfolding, but the challenges lying ahead were waiting, masked in the shadows of her triumph. What lay beyond the glowing success of the night? Emily felt the ground shift beneath her. The world had changed, and now she had to confront the darker realities of ambition. A storm was brewing, and she had yet to face the fiercest winds. As the applause faded and the last notes of the band played in her ears, Emily stepped outside for a breath of fresh air. the night alive with the chatter and laughter of her guests. She needed solitude, a moment to process the impact of what had just occurred. The warm breeze tousled her hair, but it failed to cool the fire ignited within her. She had stepped into the role of a leader, yet the exhilaration of that was laced with apprehension. What came next? Quiet contemplation turned into an unsettling question. Was she truly prepared for the weight of responsibility that had been thrust upon her? The thought gnawed at her. Challenging self-doubt was becoming a familiar battle, but each time she found herself wondering if she was good enough, a more resilient voice emerged, reminding her of the energy and joy collectively shared that evening. Consequences flared before her, with each new venture came new expectations. She could no longer hide behind the diner's counter or lean solely on the memories of her mother's past achievements. The vision she had translated into reality tonight was sewn into her identity. Emily decided right then to communicate more openly, fostering connections that could help lighten the load of uncertainty. She texted Maya, inviting her to meet for coffee the next day. It would be another opportunity to discuss the aftermath of their success and way forward. Teamwork had brought both companionship and focus, but tonight highlighted that the road ahead would inevitably be more convoluted than expected. They needed to strategize how they would proceed from this point. The sun dipped behind the horizon, its last orange rays casting soft shadows against the diner's walls. Emily stepped back inside, enlivened by people still sharing stories and laughter, yet aware that lingering questions were waiting to be addressed. With renewed resolve, she approached the group of artists who had benefited from her initiative. Engaging them in conversation required vulnerability, a willingness to listen beyond the compliments exchanged. "Tonight was amazing," one musician said. "It gave us a platform, a place to shine. But what's next? What should we look out for?" His question hung in the air like an unaddressed challenge, coaxing her to step further into her role. The urgency of shaping the future loomed, and Emily sensed a shift in tone among her peers sat on expectations rather than mere praise. She realized she needed to bring them into the fold, crafting a plan for subsequent events that galvanized the talent around her rather than leaving them in the dark. "Let's collaborate again. I'd love for you all to help shape what comes next," she proposed, watching as nods of enthusiasm spread through the small gathering. Though their faces lit with excitement, a bead of trepidation prickled at Emily's conscience. How could she harness their passion toward a structure that would endure? What if she failed them? Embedding herself in leadership meant grappling with the possible weighty consequences of unfulfilled promises. Those thoughts reminded her of Mr. Grayson lingering on the perimeter of her celebration, a shadowy figure of doubt. Days drifted into a new rhythm of task management, and the ambivalence from that night remained under the surface. Emily pushed herself to initiate meetings with emerging artists and to foster collaborations that weren't merely about performance but also nurturing creativity. With each endeavor, she found herself reflecting more deeply on her motivations. Yet, no matter how many emails she sent or meetings she attended, the nagging voice of her critic emerged relentlessly, questioning her authority. Was she the right person to lead this charge forward? The pressure mounted as the stakes grew, not only for herself but for everyone now dependent on her choices. Creating an inclusive environment burgeoned into a daunting task, coordinating artists with diverse interests, aligning their visions with hers, and demonstrating her commitment to everyone involved. As plans took shape, Emily was reminded of her mother's teachings. Genuine leadership wasn't about control but rather encouragement and guidance. That evening, after a long day of strategy development, she glanced at her phone. The message from Maya stood out among the notifications. "Let's meet tomorrow. I've been thinking and have a crazy idea," it read. A flutter of interest piqued her curiosity, releasing a hopeful pulse within. Perhaps this anomaly of uncertainty was about to lead her to a pivotal breakthrough. She could sense a shift approaching, but what kind of change would it bring? Before responding, Emily inhaled deeply, considering the juncture she stood at, knowing the inevitable challenges would soon require resolution. She dared to confront her fears rather than evade them. She typed back a swift acknowledgement, an invitation to unfold Maya's mysterious idea. But whom would she face as they began to rise together? Would it lead to newfound clarity or deeper entanglements? The night felt charged with questions of leadership, partnership, and what it meant to step fully into the light. How long could she hold on to certainty as she charged into the unknown? That flicker of a challenge glimmered in her mind. This was only the beginning, and the real test loomed ahead. The next morning arrived with the promise of an adventure, a tangible thread pulling Emily towards something she could not yet grasp. As she sipped her coffee, the rich aroma swirling with the steam served as a backdrop for deep contemplation. Maya's message echoed in her mind, and she felt a buoyant anticipation edging out the familiar undercurrent of doubt. Arriving at their favorite cafe, Emily spotted Maya seated at a table, an animated expression lighting up her features. There was something in that smile that drew Emily in, stirring a desire to let go of her apprehensions, if only for a moment. The chaos of their shared aspirations somehow found a balance in their friendship. It was a foundation she cherished. "What did you want to discuss?" Emily asked, her eagerness veiled under a thin skin of curiosity. Maya leaned forward, her voice low but filled with excitement. "I've been thinking about our next project. What if we host a mentorship program? Pair established artists with newcomers? It could create an innovative space for interaction." Emily's heart raced at the thought, both at the potential of the idea and the realistic implications of executing it. A mentorship model could not only inspire growth in others but forge renewed purpose in herself, but as she contemplated the proposal, the familiar specter of doubt loomed once more. "It sounds great, but do we have enough experience to pull something like that off? What if it flops?" she asked, unable to shake her inner critic. Maya's conviction cut through Emily's uncertainty. "We can rally our networks, build from the ground up. Think of it as a way to anchor the community. We wouldn't be doing it alone, we'd be involving everyone in shaping the process." This approach reoriented Emily's perspective, shifting the focus from her apprehensions to the genuine excitement of building something meaningful. Yet, in the silence that settled between them, doubt settled as low as her coffee cup. What if she didn't have the strength needed to support not just herself, but an entire program? She wrestled with the weight of expectations, revisiting a moment when her mother had faced a similar decision. Could her mother have hesitated as Emily did now, avoiding that leap into the unknown? "Do you remember when I used to work with Margot on those after-school initiatives?" Maya broke through Emily's reverie, bringing her back to the present. "That taught us so much about keeping it real, about reaching out for help and the power of collaboration." Connecting those dots of memory illuminated a path forward. Emily could draw from those experiences and the growing friendships she had built. Together, they could cultivate that collaborative spirit. But the question that lingered was daunting: would she be perceived as capable of leading such an initiative? With a newfound resolve, Emily interlaced her fingers, tilting her head as she weighed the possibilities. "Okay, let's outline this idea. We can design a preliminary framework, recruit a few trusted artists to guide us, and then present it, but we have to be realistic about the challenges. This isn't going to be easy." Maya nodded enthusiastically, the tension in Emily's shoulders visibly easing. Prospects for collaboration broadened into something tangible, shifting Emily's mindset. What once felt like a daunting expectation burgeoned into an invigorating opportunity. Each iteration of their discussion sparked her confidence, unveiling a growing sense of purpose beneath layers of doubt. As the morning sun infused warmth through the cafe's window, it mirrored a budding conviction within Emily. They sketched ideas, exchanging thoughts and fears, igniting an invigorating dialogue that didn't shy away from the difficulties ahead. However, amidst the excitement of possibilities, a nagging sense of vulnerability flickered at the edges of her mind. Was she merely riding the wave of enthusiasm, or could she truly harness this newfound energy into lasting impact? The very thought of failing in front of those who looked up to her pressed against the back of her thoughts. After an hour of planning, Maya pushed back her chair, hands on her hips. "We've got a good foundation, Em. Now it's your turn to present it. You have to step into that role as a leader." Emily's stomach tightened at the thought. The moment charged with pressure. A pivotal moment was approaching. Could she step into her mother's shoes, crafting a legacy rather than merely living under its shadow? As they left the cafe, resolve solidified within her time to act upon her potential. But those questions persisted. What if the fear became too great? What would happen if she stumbled? Standing at the crossroads of a new venture and self-doubt, Emily felt the swell of uncertainty intertwined with determination. How far could she push herself before she unraveled, and would she find out who she really was in the process? The stage was set, her heart pounding with the thrill of potential, yet she knew the most difficult test loomed just ahead. Would she confront her fears, or would she let them dictate the path she chose? With every step taken forward, the enormity of the challenge loomed larger, and the countdown began. What awaited her in this uncharted territory? Emily sat at her desk the next morning, her thoughts swirling like the coffee in her mug, clinging to the echoes of her conversation with Maya. A mentorship program had seemed like a far-off possibility, another lofty idea trapped in the web of her self-doubt. But as she scribbled notes, ideas began to crystallize into a plan. This was her moment. She could either give in to fear or allow it to propel her into action. The morning light cascaded through her window, illuminating her workspace strewn with colored pens and notebooks. She took a deep breath and began to outline the framework of the mentorship initiative. The initial thrill of potential faded somewhat, replaced by the pressing reality of responsibility. How could she ensure it would be successful? Every stroke of her pen felt heavy, the cursed what-ifs looming again. Did she have the capacity to lead effectively? She thought back to her childhood, remembering how her mother had convinced her students to trust in their own potential. She wouldn't back down, Emily realized, her mother's voice echoing in her mind. That resilience was something she needed to embody now. Pausing, she recognized that feeling intimidated was normal. It had to be. But in those moments of fear lay an opportunity for growth. She wouldn't be alone in this endeavor. She had Maya, and they could reach out to others. Driven to take action, Emily picked up her phone and sent out a message to their network of artists, inviting them to a brainstorming session. The mere act of reaching out ignited a flicker of excitement within her. What did she have to lose? If nothing else, she could learn from the experience and shift her approach accordingly. Throughout the day, anticipation buzzed beneath her surface. She oscillated between eagerness and anxiety as she prepared for that first meeting. Each time anxiety bubbled up, she steeled herself with the thought of others relying on her, those budding artists who might find guidance through her efforts. When the time came for the meeting, Emily took a breath and steadied her nerves. The air in the room brimmed with potential. As artists filed in, she observed the diversity in their experiences and backgrounds. This was more than just a collection of talents, it was a melting pot of aspirations and stories, one she had a chance to shape. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming, she started, her voice steadying as she dove into their vision. She articulated her ideas with passion, revealing the framework she had crafted. As she spoke, doubt ebbed away, replaced by something foreign yet exhilarating, an emerging authority as she painted a picture of what the program could be, but as feedback flowed in, so did stark reality. Not all opinions were encouraging. A few artists expressed skepticism, questioning the feasibility of her vision and the very idea of relying on mentorship. Each question felt like a personal slight, a standing challenge to her abilities. Was she truly capable of steering this initiative through the inevitable storm of critiques? Through gritted teeth, Emily listened to their concerns, evaluating the situation with a newfound perspective. Real conversations necessitated genuine inquiries, and doubt, while uncomfortable, could fuel her growth. As the meeting progressed, Emily found herself leaning into those charged interactions. She started to see the potential in their voices not as dismissals, but as invitations for constructive collaboration. Every critique sharpened her resolve. If something was amiss, she would confront the issue head-on rather than avoid it. A clear sense of purpose began to emerge. This journey wasn't simply about her. It was about fostering an environment for others to thrive. Each moment of confrontation was a stepping stone toward self-discovery. She felt a drive propelling her toward embracing her role, not just as a mentor but as a leader capable of inspiring those around her. As the meeting wrapped up, Emily sensed a tangible shift within herself, an empowerment that rendered her routine apprehensions irrelevant. With every conversation and challenge faced, her confidence solidified, twisting those threads of doubt into a tapestry of resilience. Walking home later, a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration coursed through her veins. The night air was crisp, and she marveled at the power of perseverance. But even as she allowed herself to dream about the possibilities ahead, another question loomed. What if this was the beginning of a journey that would force her to confront her deepest insecurities more than she had bargained for? The light of the street lamp flickered as she walked, illuminating the path ahead. She could feel the stakes rising. Was she ready to face the next challenge waiting just around the corner? The following morning, Emily sat in her living room, the remnants of last night's meeting swirling in her mind. The excitement she had felt was slowly morphing into an uneasy sense of responsibility. She was no longer merely an artist but a facilitator, someone who had to ensure that the aspirations of others were transformed into reality. It was humbling, but the weight pressed heavily on her shoulders. With a notepad on her lap, she reviewed the feedback from the previous night. Each critique replayed in her head like a loop, gnawing at her confidence. What if she had miscalculated? What if their doubts were justified and her vision was simply a pipe dream? In that moment, Emily understood that leadership required not just passion but also resilience against uncertainty. Determined to make adjustments, she began crafting responses to the concerns raised. She dissected each comment, turning the skepticism into actionable challenges. A few artists had pointed out the lack of clear structure, others had questioned the depth of mentorship, suggesting specific areas to focus on. As she elaborated her plans, ideas began to blossom. This was no time for retreat. She would transform doubts into opportunities for refinement. The experience forced her to dive deeper into what she was offering. Emily realized it was essential to frame the mentorship program not just as guidance, but as a partnership, a shared journey. How could she create an environment where each participant felt their input was valued? The thought excited her. She started brainstorming potential workshops, collaborative projects, and guest speakers who could enrich their experience. Here lay a chance to enrich not just her own understanding of mentorship but also the participants' connections, broadening their horizons. Throughout the day, she furiously tapped on her keyboard, her mind racing with new possibilities. The act of creating invigorated her, but she also discovered an unexpected source of power within. With each idea penned down, Emily felt her self-doubt begin to dissolve. Instead of shying away from the complexities of leadership, she was gradually stepping into them. As the days progressed towards the next meeting, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was on the cusp of a significant shift, not just for the mentorship program, but within herself as well. The contrast between her self-perception and the role she was beginning to inhabit sparked a revelation. While she had been focused on not letting others down, she had overlooked the potential of her own voice. When the day of the second meeting arrived, Emily could hardly contain the nervous energy within her. She rehearsed her talking points several times over, not just to convey her enhanced vision but to solidify her own belief in it. The stream of doubt still flowed through her mind, but this time she recognized them for what they were, echoes of fear that had less power. As she honed her intention to lead, amidst enthusiastic nods from the participants, Emily kicked off the meeting with newfound authority. The room buzzed with creative energy. As she outlined her improved framework highlighting engaging workshops and a structure that encouraged input, the atmosphere shifted. Each gaze on her transformed from skepticism to curiosity, igniting a sense of camaraderie between them. They were embarking on this journey together. Just as she was starting to embrace her role as the leader she could be, a voice interrupted the flow. One artist, her tone laced with sharpness, questioned the viability of the entire venture. Emily felt the immediate sting of confrontation, her heart racing. It was a challenge she hadn't anticipated, and the confrontation sent a pulse of anxiety through her veins. "Who are you to say what mentorship should look like?" the artist demanded skeptically, eyes narrowing with defiance. this was it the moment that would define her journey. Emily faced the room, every pair of eyes on her, filled not just with curiosity but with the demand for authenticity. The responsibility hung heavier than before, but could she turn this encounter into an opportunity for growth? "Perhaps I'm not the typical mentor," Emily began, her voice steadier than she felt. "But I believe in learning together." As her words flowed, she felt a shift within herself. What began as an outer confrontation was invoking a deeper question: was she ready to dismantle her own fears and emerge as the authoritative figure she needed to be? With the weight of that possibility looming over her, Emily braced herself, wondering if she could turn this challenge around or if it would serve as a reminder of the insecurities lingering just below the surface. The mentorship program had become more than just a collection of ideas. It evolved into a reflection of Emily's commitment to her community and its burgeoning artists. The second meeting unfolded before her with tension electrifying the air, setting the stage for her most formative moment yet. As the participants challenged her vision, she felt the rush of fear, but instead of crumbling, she drew upon the lessons of resilience her mother had instilled in her. "Perhaps I'm not the typical mentor," she said, her voice resonating with newfound authority. "But I believe in learning together." Each word hung in the air, a promise of collaboration rather than dictation. As the words flowed, Emily's confidence solidified. She articulated the foundations of the mentorship as not merely hierarchical but as an inclusive venture where experiences intertwined. Laughter and shouts of agreement rippled through the room as she painted a vivid picture of what could blossom when they all contributed their wisdom. This wasn't just her project, it was their chance to cultivate growth as a united front. The energy shifted palpably, fueling her resolve. The questions volleyed back and forth, transforming skepticism into spirited debate. Each challenge became an opportunity for Emily to showcase her capacity for leadership. Acknowledging hesitations and brainstorming resolutions led to a burgeoning excitement. Each voice added depth, forging a collaborative spirit that turned fears into action plans. As participants shared their perspectives, Emily found herself not merely responding but building bridges of understanding. "Let us have workshop nights where we can brainstorm together," she proposed, invigorated by the palpable momentum. "Each artist can lead a session to share their techniques, and we'll weave in feedback loops to refine our progress. This is about creating something expansive not just for us, but for future talent." Applause erupted, drowning her initial doubts. In that moment, Emily realized their excitement was an indication of impending success not just for the initiative but for herself as a leader. She witnessed a transformation unfolding before her eyes, a ripple of empowerment that belonged not to just her but to everyone sitting in that room. Weeks later, with the mentorship program thriving and a schedule of events solidified, Emily felt a crescendo of achievement building within her. Participants flourished under the shared guidance, showcasing their art at local gatherings filled with undeniable vitality. For the first time, she understood their growth reflected her own evolution. She wasn't merely following in her mother's footsteps, she was carving her path. At their final gathering, she stood before the group, a canvas of newfound confidence painted on her visage. "Look how far we've come together. This is just the beginning." Applause rose like waves crashing on the shore, each echo affirming her journey. In that moment of collective triumph, Emily felt a deep satisfaction swell within her. She had conquered her self-doubt, emerged as an effective leader, and in doing so, secured a legacy not just for her mother's diner but for her community as well. The realization settled in: she was no longer an uncertain girl stepping into a mantle, she had become a powerful force in her own right, a director of possibility. As she walked away from the meeting that day, she held her head high, grounded in a solid confidence that nothing could shake. The recognition from the local art council to highlight her mentorship program proved that her voice carried weight. Their acknowledgement reaffirmed her competence, solidifying her position as a change-maker. Emily had achieved what she once deemed impossible, executing a vision, leading a team, and making her mark in a world that initially doubted her. It was a tangible accomplishment, one that anchored her genuine growth and determination, illustrated through reflections of gratitude and camaraderie. As the sun set over Maplewood, the vibrant sign of Linda's diner bathed in golden light felt renewed, symbolizing not just survival but a thriving future ahead. She had proven to herself that ambition could indeed ignite change hers, her mother's, and the community's. Never again would she let doubt eclipse her potential. Emily had become an embodiment of resilience, leadership, and courage, living up to her declaration that she could indeed make a difference. Now, take a moment to reflect on your own journey. You need to subscribe now to follow more exclusive emotional stories of personal transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and share these stories with others seeking inspiration. Your support matters. Comment your reactions and theories about Emily's incredible metamorphosis. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of resilience. Don't wait even one more second. Show your support for the community we're building together.